If you want something to grow, you have to plant a seed. We're talking about planting seeds on this episode of the Driving with Rob podcast. Do you have a garden? Have you ever had a garden? Whether it's flowers, vegetables, landscape plants, whatever it is, if you want something to grow, you first have to plant it, right? Everybody knows this. Even people who aren't blessed with a green thumb know that you have to plant stuff if you want stuff to grow. Well, I started thinking about this the other day. I rode by our old house, the place we used to live like 20 years ago. And I planted a tree. Because when we first moved into that house, in the morning, the sun would come right through the front window, especially in the summertime. It was lined up perfectly with the window that looked out over our front porch. And I thought to myself, if there was a tree right there, in the summertime it would have leaves and it would shade the sun coming in through that front window in the mornings. In the winter, when the sun changed its angle, I still wouldn't get direct sunlight because of the angle of the sun, but I would still get enough sunlight to warm up the front room. But the sun wouldn't be in my eyes. So that seemed to me to be a perfect solution to this problem, is to plant a tree right there so it would block the sun. And because I do have a touch of OCD, I put a stake in the front yard, went back in the house, sat on my couch, and thought, okay, is that the best place? Ended up moving the stake 3 or 4 times before I got it in the ideal spot. And once I picked what I thought was the perfect place to plant a tree, then I started looking at trees from our local greenhouse garden center, whatever. And I had looked up some things on the internet, and pretty much everybody said if you wanted a tree to grow and you wanted it to be as disease-free as possible, that you needed to plant a native tree, because a native tree would be immune, or as immune as it could be, to the local diseases and fungus and that kind of thing that damages trees, and it's already ideally suited for the weather conditions in your area. So I planted a red maple, because red maples are native to North Carolina. They have really pretty leaves in the fall. And I should be able to plant this tree and not have any problems with it later, and it should just grow and grow and grow. Well, I was doing an electrical job down the road where our old house used to be. Well, the house is still there. We just don't live there. But I rode by this house, and here was this tree that I planted 20 plus years ago. And with all due respect to Bobby Goldsboro, see the tree, how big it's grown. And if you don't understand the Bobby Goldsboro reference, then you're just too young. But here was this tree. It was, I'm going to say, at least 30 feet tall. At least 30 feet tall. And the people who live in the house now had hung a tire swing on one of the limbs. And I remember thinking to myself, what a good idea it was for me to plant that tree, because it served a purpose, and it was pretty, and it was natural, and it was local, and planted in the ideal spot. That I'd really put forth some forethought in where I was going to put this tree, where I was going to make this planting. Intentional, functional landscaping. And I wondered to myself, if the current residents of this house ever look at that tree and say, you know what? That tree is in the ideal spot. That tree couldn't have been placed in a better spot. Isn't God wonderful? God grew the tree, but I planted it. And I planted it with intention. I planted it with a purpose. I had a particular reason for not only planting the tree, but a particular reason for planting it where I planted it. Because I had a vision of what I wanted this tree to accomplish for me. And I'm sure that the people that live in the house now never thought about it twice. They're reaping the benefits from it, but I'm sure it never occurred to them to say, what a good idea it was to plant a tree right here. Because we kind of take trees for granted. We just assume that this tree grew up on its own and somebody decided to not cut it down and allowed it to get to the size that it is now. But as I was thinking about this tree, I got to thinking about planting seeds. See, my son is getting married on Sunday. And as the father of the groom, we are responsible for the rehearsal dinner and getting everything ready for the rehearsal dinner, finding a place, getting enough tables and chairs lined up so that we can have a sit-down dinner for the rehearsal Saturday night and the wedding on Sunday. And we love our soon-to-be daughter-in-law. Couldn't be happier with this girl that my son fell in love with. Because in addition to a wedding that we've got coming up, 2 of my other kids are about to make me a grandfather for the first time. So this will be the 3rd son who's getting married. And I got to thinking about seed planting with all the events that are coming up soon in our lives. You always beat yourself up as parents. I should have taught them this. I wish I had told them that when they were younger. I wish I had stressed the importance of fill in the blank. Am I a good parent? Well, the thing about being a parent, kids learn from watching you. And whether you're aware of it or not, you're planting seeds. Because things that they see take root in their hearts and in their minds. And they will grow whether you intentionally plant them or not. And I got to thinking that the seeds that we unintentionally planted was a good work ethic, how to be honest, decent, loving, caring people. And these lessons were planted and took root and grew in spite of the fact that we didn't intentionally plant them. That they saw what a caring, loving family looks like. And that seed was planted in them so that they wanted those same things for themselves. A faith in God, a love of country, and just how to be decent human beings. That seed was planted whether or not we intentionally planted it. And now that seed has grown and hopefully will continue to grow and make seeds of its own. So that these things, these qualities that we wanted out of what we planted will continue to grow and continue to reproduce. So if I can leave you with one thought about planting seeds, you're planting seeds whether you realize it or not. You're planting seeds whether or not you intentionally wanted them to grow. You're going to reap the benefits of the seeds you sow. Maybe you should be a little intentional and make sure that you're planting good seeds. A little philosophical journey. I know the last couple of podcasts have been about politics. This was completely non-political. Just a little philosophical thought that I was having. about planting seeds. I hope you liked it. If you like the podcast, please subscribe if you're not subscribing already. Share it with your friends and family. Share it on Facebook. Share it on Twitter. Tell other people about the podcast. Tell them that you like the podcast and you think they will too. Thanks again for downloading. Thanks again for listening. And I'll talk to you next time. Bye now.